Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of His Dark Materials, The Idea of North. And this was a pretty engaging episode. Now, granted, the weakest parts we still have are the Egyptians trying to follow the trail of the gobblers, but since they're focusing more on John Fa doing the whole kind of trying to find him and everything, he at least has a little bit more of a presence that I kind of like. At least trying to show that he's trying to help his people and help these children. Whereas I didn't really connect that much with Tony and his mother, and this episode really doesn't rectify it that much. So we get kind of some main things of dealing with Lyra and Mrs. Coulter, of course, the Egyptians, and this agent of the Magisterium, Boreal. That one's pretty important. So let's kind of go through the Egyptian one first. We pretty much just see them always kind of on the back foot, like one step behind what's going on with the gobblers. We have seen some, of course, them looking at Roger and Billy as they're pretty much put and moved from location to location where the Egyptians are able to get to one and find like a vest that Billy had, so they know they're on the trail. Show it to the mother, who's like, he's probably still at Oxford. And of course, they've got the proof of that. It's like, oh crap. So we see that one of them is deciding to do their own kind of thing and pretty much gets Tony to join him on that. So that's pretty much just where that kind of works out. We do see that Roger tries to comfort Billy as they're being moved from place to place and just pretty much talking about how they're kind of dealing with it. Roger pretty much being like, hey, Lyra's cool. You know what I mean? He really doesn't have a mother to miss. Lyra's kind of his only kind of connection to the outside world at this point because his aunt got him a job at Jordan College to really not deal with him. I'm like, dude, that sucks for you, man. Ugh. And we also see at a point that it like links up with Mrs. Coulter as she pretty much talks to the children to get them to write letters to loved ones and everything. We even see Roger writing it out to Lyra, and she really keeps her calm and cool with that. That's more towards the end of the episode as we're learning more of her complicated kind of dealings with what's going on with the world. As she then throws out the letters, kind of cementing more of her kind of ruthless nature. So, the main bulk of this is pretty much Lyra settling into being Mrs. Coulter's protege, with her taking her to this Arctic Institute kind of place to have lunch, and pretty much trying to get her to be High Lady of Society. Now, granted, we don't know the complete time frame, but it's kind of hard to pretty much take a 12-year-old kid who not exactly had free reign at Jordan College, but free enough to kind of do most of the things that she wanted and try and turn her into like a perfect lady. I mean, this person really hasn't dealt much with kids in an actually positive manner if she thought it was going to go out that way. But it's kind of cool to see Lyra in this episode because she's looking through all these things at that institute before they have lunch and being like, wow, this is amazing. And seeing all these awesome kind of figures that are really prominent and exploring around the institute and all that. But of course, Mrs. Coulter's using it as a form of control, being like, okay, you gotta act my way. I'll teach you all these tricks and everything to be able to pretty much bend people to your will. It's like, wow, I would be kind of worried about that person. But of course, Pan really is Lyra's kind of second heel on this, like second conscience, and like you gotta watch out. He's very balanced, and I'm glad that we saw more of that kind of interaction in this episode because Lyra is very free spirited and kind of like, oh, I'll do kind of whatever I want. Whereas Pan pretty much is that kind of even in balance. And even when it gets to a point where there's kind of like danger involved, it's kind of interesting to see them kind of flip where Pan is trying desperately to be like, there's something going on here. This isn't right. We need to fucking get out of here kind of deal. I'm like, yes. So we see Mrs. Coulter pretty much trying to teach her everything, of course, going into a bit about electrons. This is only important because Lyra does not understand the subtlety of what needs to be done when she just casually brings up dust. I think this is an important bit of her character because she is trying to assert her own kind of dominance, and that, like, oh, you're trying to teach me so much, I already know stuff. And then seeing Mrs. Coulter and her monkey demon be like, kind of miffed off when that was going on. Pan's like, you don't tell her where you fucking heard that. And of course, she makes up some other kind of story to kind of keep it kind of okay, make sure that she doesn't really kind of overstep her bounds, kind of cover herself. That's an important kind of thing to kind of learn in the world that she's kind of going into. So we see that she like is getting dressed and everything, and she's pretty much trying to teach her what's going on. And there's weird kind of things going on in this, well, apartment's not really the correct term because it's actually like a whole floor showing how important she is, and that it's a locked elevator that only Mrs. Coulter has the key to. And of course, Pan's hearing these things going along in the walls. What the hell is going on? And of course, it is freaking Lyra out at once, and she goes and sees that the monkey demon is in the study, and like, what the fuck? But Mrs. Coulter comes, and the monkey demon is following her, and it's like, how far can that thing be from you? Because they can't be that far. And then it starts getting into the position of like they really need to learn what's going on. Lyra is of course still trying to use the alethiometer to kind of figure out what's going on, but it really kind of comes to a head when someone from the Magisterium has come to kind of get an idea of what's going on with the gobblers and all that, because the Cardinal had sent him to kind of keep everything more in line and more controlled, thinking that the children gathering is not being as effectively executed as it should be, and that they want to exert their own control on the the board. And I'm sorry, I mean, I understand that they're trying to do the build up for the whole reveal of Mrs. Coulter being the head of the gobblers, but I'm like, all right, you're seeing Gob right there, because she gets caught like listening in by another Magisterium agent, and this leads to a confrontation with her and Mrs. Coulter, and she sicks her monkey demon on Pan, and we see an important part of what demons do in this world, in that if something goes after a demon and physically starts like attacking it, the person is incapacitated as well. So this does a good job of showcasing what goes on in the world while also showcasing characters, in that if you piss off Mrs. Coulter, she will use any direct means whatsoever to control you to their liking. This, of course, lets her anger control her even more, to the point where she blurts out that Lord Asriel is Lyra's father instead of her uncle. And this, of course, kind of breaks him kind of down a lot. It's like, holy shit. And Lyra kind of goes off to the room and is like, I just want to be alone. And she pretty much just goes with business as usual to what should be going on in Mrs. Coulter's perfect little way. I mean, she does give some sass every now and then when she's like eating food, when they're having a meal together, but she's kind of like very wary of Mrs. Coulter now. I'm like, hey, yeah, this was a way to get out and try and get Roger. And of course, she's still lying to the fact of what's going on with Roger, where she's pretty much, towards the end of the episode, sending him off to the north. It's like, okay, this is kind of crazy. And links up to Lyra going through the pipes and everything. Well, not the pipes, but the secret passageways that the monkey demon can use, and got into Mrs. Coulter's study and was able to look into the various different kind of documents that she had with the gob, the board that she's the head of, and Pan putting together, she's the head of the gobblers, and finding these schematics for a station up north and some kind of contraption that looks really kind of crazy for kids and demons. It's like, okay, that's not good. But she's able to get everything back together and get back into her room and be able to be have Mrs. Coulter be none the wiser of what's going on. Then we get towards the end of this portion and getting towards the end of the episode. But before we get to that, we have to link up with another character from the Magisterium, Boreal, as he is sent off to look into what's going on with Grumman. the person whose head that Lord Asriel supposedly brought from the north. He goes to Jordan College and wants to look at the remains. The master says, "Go fuck yourself." And he is able to get into the crypts and find the head, and for some reason is able to ascertain with the help of his demon that it is not the head of the person that they claim it is. How that occurs is kind of strange because we are given no other information about what's going on with that. What the hell? So he decides to go between worlds. Now this is kind of different because in the books I don't remember them being able to do this at first and be able to like cross between worlds. I thought that was more of a bigger portion of like the second book. And he goes through and evidently comes into our world, and we see him using a smartphone and everything like that in a car, meets up with one of his contacts, wants to see the demon. It's like, yeah, here it is. And it's really, I don't remember the exact specifics, but I didn't know if the demons are able to, I didn't know if the demons disappeared or just were unable to speak while they were in our world, since our souls are in our bodies, whereas their souls are in the form of the demons. And the dude's like, "Hey, your world just wants us for whatever you want. What about us?" I'm like, "Yeah, you're sounding kind of like dickish like him too." He's like, "I thought you were going to be coming last week or whatnot." It's like, okay, interesting little tease. We'll have to see how it kind of goes. But he's evidently trying to find Grumman through seeing if he is in this world instead of the usual world that we've been in with Lyra and the rest. So he pretty much comes back, and this is where he kind of links back up with what's going on, where Mrs. Coulter has his party. Lyra, of course, is the serving girl and all that, and she's able to like give drinks, but finds this one reporter who's talking about like Mrs. Coulter being the head of the Gobblers and all that. And I'm like, wow, how the fuck did she get in here? Because if this is a person who's really tight with the Magisterium and really supposed to be good at her job, that's a kind of big slip up. And we had seen that Lyra had been trying to use the alethiometer to ascertain the truth of certain things, and we've seen that it's been moving on its own, but not when Lyra has been trying to mess with it, as she's trying to keep it on her person at all times in case she's going to have to leave, kind of like now, at an important part. And she's able to get off and pretty much get out while the reporter is taken down by Boreal, and he takes her demon, which is in the form of kind of a bug, and smashes it in his fist and kills her. It's like, damn. So we get a lot of important kind of movement on how demons are affected in this world and what happens when something happens to a demon to their person. So we're like, okay, physical harm, that ain't good. Death, holy shit. And he just killed her in broad daylight. There's like nothing. It's like, okay, that's the power of the Magisterium. Good to know. And Lyra's like, alright, let's get out of here, and pretty much runs off by like going out a window and just booking it. Now granted, this doesn't go well because her and Pan are going off. Pan's like, listen, we need to find someplace warm to hunker down and everything and come up with some other kind of plan. Lyra, of course, is very freaked out and still thinks that the monkey demon is following them, but they kind of stop at a certain point, and of course the gobbler that we've seen, well, and I don't know if it's the same specific gobbler, but we see a kind of fox demon using some kind of method to kind of draw Pan in, and we see that Lyra is captured by the gobblers at the end. So we'll kind of have to see how that works out. That's not a good spot for Lyra to be in. So I enjoyed that we got to see the true colors of Mrs. Coulter. Lyra's pretty much put in a situation where she will have to really work together with Pan and use the smarts that she's got to try and get out of this situation, and also try and help Roger and the rest, and see how it kind of links up with Egyptians and what kind of other things Lord Asriel will be up to that'll probably intersect with this. So I thought this was an enjoyable episode. There were some parts where it's like, okay, maybe a little more would have been explained, like how Boreal was able to ascertain that that wasn't the person's head, and why, kind of more of the significance of being able to go between the worlds and what the Magisterium's objectives are. Now granted, I understand you need to tease that so that way you can understand like plot relevant explanation later when you actually get it. It's just like, okay, I haven't read the books in a while, so I'm a little bit fuzzy on certain details. But I'm like, okay, I don't really remember this, but we'll see kind of how it goes. So we know that the North is going to be an important kind of focal point for what's going on going forward. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.